Well, hello, and how are you on this wonderful Sunday afternoon? Only days after. Well, I never really know. I've got to stop. I've just got to stop because it will say it's live, and then it will say it's not live. And okay, okay, friends. So we're going to start this again. My bad. Well, good afternoon on this wonderful Sunday. Only days after we received the announcement that the projected president elect is Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So, this is a win for Black America, although it is not a binding resolution for the transformation that we need. And, for other populations as well, both our committed and proven allies, because there's a difference. Some of our allies are just, they're here for the sensationalism. um, and there are other disenfranchised populations as well that are benefiting. Shout out to the Navajo Native Americans out in Arizona who showed out, right? High five to the Georgians who showed out, turned the state blue. I'm rocking blue in honor of that. Some of you know that it is my favorite color, even though color is my favorite color. And it's just time to just take a moment and celebrate this because it is profound. Okay. All right. So we're going to dive in because I'm going to stop promptly today at 5:00. This is part 2 on Breonna Taylor. I will do a very quick introduction covering what I've already spoken about in the last video. And then I'm going to go into more depth with regards to the statutory law and the concerns that we have, those who believe that Breonna Taylor was murdered, believe that the officers who shot and killed Breonna should be charged criminally. And I'll go into this, but I think what is the issue that is, or the missing element, if you will, is, well, we'll get into it because, yeah, here we go. We're going to get into it. So the first thing that I do is, what do I tell you? I say, all right, I am Tigress, Sydney Acute McDaniel, and welcome to Evolve Weekly. All right. I am a scientist, foremost. I am also an economist, and I am pursuing law. I am delighted to bring this weekly format to you, and I am hopeful that you will help me in expanding my reach so that we can have more relevant content as it relates to the things that we really need to discuss, decide upon, because there's way too much discussion. We've been having so much discussion, but we have no decisions that we've made collectively. We need to decide who we are as a collective so that when we petition, because in these decisions should be our reparations, should be the justice that we are seeking. And when we make these decisions, we need to stand as a unified front. We don't need to have the subgroups within Black America divided to the point of conflict. It's okay to share varied opinions and have varied belief systems. We all do. All ethnic groups have sub culture. That's okay. But as I explained in our last video, we should have high level belief systems consistent. There should be a consensus on our high level issues. And we don't have that consensus. We need that. We've referred to it at times as the Black Code, but only generally in stereotypical realms. For our entertainment culture, how we interact with one another, salutations, or what we should and should not be doing. Again, interaction, social interaction. But we haven't really had it well established where we've come together as a unified front to say this is what we want, and these are our agreed upon standards. And that's what I reiterate to you that I love about Ice Cube's intentions. Ice Cube's not only intentions, but the fact that he has started the template, if you will, for this contract. Now, I've explained to you where my concerns lie for the legality of and the binding legality or enforcement of a contract by a group of persons who do not fit, we do fit a protected class, quote unquote, but and not only generally so, but we have a specific ethnic, protected class. However, we still have some gaps in legislation, in law, that prevent us from actually having the binding enforcement that we are seeking when we seek justice and we seek punitive relief or punitive consequences against those who would seek to subject us to racism, subject us to inequity in public education, in higher secondary education, in the workforce, in general life. And I say we're you and I, me, Black America generally, we don't have any issue with calling a white supremacist a terrorist. But it still stands that generally too many who are part of our governing body still have that disposition. And this is why discussing Breonna Taylor and as a function of law is going to be relevant. And I want us to all get on the same page. This is the reason why I've started this. And I believe that the interdisciplinary nature of my background and the varied experiences that I've had, albeit professional work, travel, social interactions, and even within my own family and the subcultures that make up me, Haiti and Native American Cherokee, I believe that I can bring a very fresh perspective, and especially coming from a military family that is so diverse and rich of various ethnic groups as well. And knowing still yet that I am Black power driven. And when we say Black power, we're not talking about, well, I'm not. Let's make this very clear. And I learned this from my father, who was, and I'll reiterate once more because I've said this and I'll say it again, who was a member of the Black Panther Party. There are a lot of myths that have been associated with that, a lot of lies. They were a very positive driven organization. Now, yes, were they apt to and trained and prepared intentionally to protect themselves and protect Black communities, neighborhoods? Absolutely. But where in that is some abandon from positivity? I'm sorry, I don't see it. An unprovoked attack upon a Black community, yes, we are entitled to defend ourselves. So we should not have this viewpoint of the Black Panther Party, and we definitely should not ascribe to the entire organization the traits of maybe members of a few, okay? Because we know that we all, from all of our organizations, we have individuals who would assume a disposition or assume an attitude or act in a way that is not consistent with the ideals of that organization, okay? So this is who I am. And I'm laying my gifts at your feet, humbly and confidently so, hoping to help in the process of liaising the transformation and the more perfect union that we seek. And I hate kind of using these, these soundbite terms, but I was watching something and I posted it. Please go back and check my post from today. And I noticed I shared the post of someone else's, and they had actually did like a test, if you will. They did their own little experiment, and they said, what is it exactly? What is this thing that Trump has, this appeal that he has to these people? Because this was not a close race. We're talking about 70 million to 73 million to 69 million. The gap should have been much, much, much greater. This should have been a landslide for Biden and Kamala Harris, even despite our concerns about Joe Biden's and Kamala Harris's history. It still should have been a no-brainer considering everything that Donald Trump has done. And especially considering our contentions right now, our problem, our issue, our being upset, our want for justice as it relates to Breonna Taylor. Trump ain't helping us with that. Boo-boo don't even know how. Not even with his legal team. He's not done anything profound, even with his legal team during this entire term that was, remember, cut short because he was impeached, people. He was impeached. Okay. All right. So that's my opening. And now let's get even more serious and still yet lighthearted. But he was saying that Trump's appeal was that he used no high-level language. He used language that everyone could relate to. So instead of legislation, he used law. Instead of, what's the other things? Instead of, I can't think of the other one. But basically, he pointed out something that I've been telling you for years, decades now. And we're going to have another discussion because, and we're going to have lots of discussions, of course. But amongst the upcoming sessions, let me go ahead and slip this in. We're going to have a discussion on why Black America does not believe and listen to and join forces with people like myself. And I'm not the first one. There are Fannie Lou. There's Harriet Tubman. There's so many. And we have talked till we're blue in the face, had to become aggressive with our own people and fuss with love to encourage against division. And again, this will be in another session. It shouldn't have taken a Tamika Mallory before you all got it. We shouldn't have to hear it in a Beyonce song for you to get it. And yes, I am definitely an academic. But when I greet you, Charlotte, when I greet you, Greensboro, when I greet you out in California, when I greet you, Louisville, Kentucky, when I have greeted you, Phoenix, Arizona, and I have been in these places rallying, the same fight that has been in my core I have taken with me in every place that I've lived. I don't use any high level diction because this is Evolve Wiki. So I do want there to be some stronghold to professionalism. And because this is something that we all want as Black America. We want to have the entertainment. We want to have the fun stuff, but we don't want to just be associated remember, we don't want to be just associated with only doing well in the entertainment industry. And so this change of how we perceive individuals who would use high level diction has got to change. And I talked about this even in the last session. Our definition of cool has to change. And it can't just change just amongst those individuals who have become enlightened. It has to be one of those things that I'm talking about as it relates to our general consensus, our revised Black code. Actually, you know what? That's what I'm going to call it. We need a revised Black code. Oh, and let me drop this as well. I'm very excited about this. And then we're going to go, because it's 15 minutes, and now we're right on schedule to discuss Breonna Taylor as a function of law. I won't say legislation, even though that is my preference. And I don't want to necessarily have to change that diction, because there are certain terms that are core to the way that this country is governed that you need to know. You need to, when someone says legislation, oh yeah, they're talking about law. Or when someone says obfuscation, oh, Tigress said that 11 times, she didn't got on my nerves. I'm trying to hear that word. That word, it irks me, because I know that basically that means that they trying to play me. They trying to play me and really play my face, all up in my face. They playing me, okay? I want you to know those words. I don't want you to be sitting at an event and you're like, okay, well, I don't even know what obfuscation means. I have to look it up later on. And then later on never happens because you're full. Your life is full. I know that. My life is full. I go to events. I want to look up everything that someone says, and I try to take notes, and I do my absolute due diligence and my own, self opportunity of learning, all that, my ever learning self. And sometimes I miss things. So I want you to see me as not the individual who's like, oh, she's talking at us and above us. I'm with you. I am you. I've even had individuals suggest that when I say I'm people too, that somehow they're like, oh, she, what does she mean by that? I'm confused. I am people too. I don't see any. I am people too. That's just as damn simple as you can. I am people too. I'm you. I'm no better than you. I don't care how many degrees I may have or am in pursuit of. I don't care how many years I've been in business. I don't care what status someone would ascribe to me because they think that I'm efficacious and that and you need to know that word too, because they use that when they're governing us, and they talk about efficacy and they talk about viability of certain legal processes. I want you to know that. I want us to know whatever is here. My dad and my mom taught me it is supposed to be for the benefit of my village. You are my village. Even the allies, again, the committed, proven allies, the ones that are in process, hey, get on board. But don't get it twisted, because someone like myself, we will call you out if we see that you're just only here for the parade. You just came for the parade, for the show. Because I do no minstrel here. And some of you have mistaken when I say and use the word minstrel, minstrel, to think that I am using it to describe an African American. No. You see, nigger, Nigger, we know that definition is what? Fool. So that means that Caucasians can be niggers. That means that Chinese, Asian people can be niggers. That means that Hawaiian, Native American, they can also be niggers. The point that I'm making here, and of course I'm not, clearly, if you just try to take just one part of this out, you're going to look stupid, because I've told you before, if you see an edited version of any of my videos, don't trust it, because I am doing this in real time. I'm in my right mind. I drink my water. So I can actually have a 2-hour long conversation, if not longer, on topic, stay on topic. You won't see any gaps in me losing track. And if I have a caveat or a tangent, you'll know that I can come right back to it because my mind, my synapse, they are working, cognitively working very well because of how well I take care and appreciate and love myself and my body. These are the same things I want us to share. I don't want you to be two steps behind me. I want you to be beside me because I'm people too. I am you. All right, let's do it. Okay, so Breonna Taylor, as a function of legislation, one more time, equals law. Now, there are some variations. We went over those definitions from before. Please refer back to part 1. Even though they may be long videos, and I understand very greatly how long videos can be just a bit much, just consider it free tuition. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying, friends? My academia befits my beneficiaries. I didn't pursue these degrees just for only my benefit. I'm the primary beneficiary of my schooling, but I didn't do it just for myself. I've said this over and over, well before 2013. I even told you what my plan would be, and I've been on my plan the exact consistent time. I've been me. Okay, so here's the issue, and we talked about this before, but not on this, not on Evolve Weekly. I've shared this at events in person. I've shared it in posts on my Instagram or other social media. I've shared it in live feeds that were just short, but not in this organized format. So don't look for it in this per se, but maybe in some of my past posts, you'll see it. There are elements in law. These elements are criteria or reasons or factors. We all generally know if-then scenarios. Okay, so if you study hard, then you should pass your test. That's just a very simple example of an if-then scenario. They're generally in computer programming and mathematical fields of study. Okay. So when you have an element, it's the if. To charge someone with a crime. So the crimes are the then. Okay. You'll hear the word constitute. Okay. So they'll say, if these elements are met, then the charge of murder, or it constitutes the charge of murder. It constitutes a valid legal action for negligence. You get what I'm saying? Okay, so we have elements. So these are the things that need to, they will say they need to be met. Elements that need to be satisfied, they need to be met. That only means that they need to see them. Okay, so I'm going to give you another simple example, and this is just completely colloquial. Okay, I will give you $10 if you get an A in math, at least a B in science, and at least a C in social studies. Okay, so then you come back to me. So your A, B, and C, right? Those are elements. The $10 would be the crime that can be charged. Okay, so you come to me and you have an A in math. You received a C in science, and you have an A in social studies. So you have met two of the requirements to constitute receiving $10. You have not met the requirement or the element as it relates to your grade in science. Therefore, we cannot give you $10. Therefore, you cannot be charged with the crime. I hope you're following with me, okay? So now I'm going to give an example here as it relates specifically to Breonna Taylor, okay? And this is what they always use. And this is the part of legislation that we need to make sure is changed. Now, Kamala Harris has made some comments about this, and I believe this is where her focus will be. I believe that because I've been very concerned about her demeanor when she seems to laugh. And maybe it's nervous laughter. I'm not really sure because I've not seen any interviews where they ask her about her response, her laughter as a response, or her kind of snickering. And I shouldn't say snickering because it appears to be snickering to me. And maybe that's because it's just a microaggression. But she seems to kind of giggle a bit when someone says, well, I have a question on reparations. Are you going to fight for reparations? And then she's kind of like, and then she answers the question, but she never directly answers the question. That concerns me. Okay, so now let's go. All right. Same difference as it relates to our concerns about writing specifically into law punishment for police officers who would engage the activity that they have been engaging that results in the murder of Black persons. Black persons most markedly, and this is another term that you need to, these are terms that we own. Come on with me. Come with me. I got your back. Okay. Markedly is not, it's not hard either. It's not a hard term. And again, if you already know these things, I am not speaking down to you. This is all love. Evolve Weekly is all love. And if I didn't know it, I would want you to break it down for me. Me and you, us never part, Maki da. Okay, all right. Okay, so Kamala has spoken about writing this explicitly, which means like it would stipulate, because the problem right now is that the legislation is ambiguous. It's open for interpretation. And depending on the lawyer that goes in and represents for the estate or the family, and we generally all understand what estate means. So for the, because unfortunately the person who they're seeking justice for has deceased as a result of this police brutality. So it's the family that is going in on behalf of their lost loved one. And that's called the estate, right? Okay. Kamala, she has stated specifically that will be part of her process to have that written directly in the law that says, hey, no, here, it's not going to be open for interpretation. The law is going to say, if then. Because you see, we have very few scenarios in existing law that gives a definite if then scenario for police brutality that results in the death of citizens, Black citizens. Do you understand that? Y'all, I know y'all got to be with me. I know you're feeling me now. Okay. So when this DA, and I keep calling him DA, when this Attorney General in Louisville, in Kentucky, right? When he says, because he hasn't broken it down, and he's under no obligation to share that publicly because he can't speak to certain things consistent with the canons. And again, this is this is the standards of professional conduct or standards of conduct for legal professionals. So he is within that body of policy doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. And it pisses me off too, because we know he's hiding behind that. He's hiding behind it. Kind of like what T.I. was saying. We're not talking about politics. We just want you to answer the damn question. And too often, the way that the standards of law are set up is that it gives legal professionals full opportunity to hide behind certain things where they don't have to come out and actually completely answer a question. You see how Amy did, right? Before her judgeship was conferred, her nomination, right? She avoided every single question. And it was available to her to do so, protected by law. We need an if-then scenario that says, okay, we have a wonky one. The wonky one right now, it says, okay, if police is on duty, okay, that's number one. That's number one element. If police fails to allow reasonable time after acknowledging that he is there to serve a warrant to allow the people inside the house, if anyone's inside the house, to respond. Okay, here's another element, right? Number three, if the officer reasonably believes the suspect or potential suspects or parties who appear to be standing in the way of their execution of the warrant. And I'm using different terms intentionally because I don't want to overload any one of these videos with legal jargon. Okay? Because they would call this resisting arrest, just so you're aware. Because oftentimes we are like, well, they weren't resisting arrest. We always say that. And we are right in one colloquially. We're right from the mindset of common sense. Or they'll use the term obstruction of justice. And we're like, well, ain't nobody trying to keep you from doing your job. What the hell are you talking about? How was Breonna trying to keep you from doing the job? She wasn't obstructing justice. Are you serious? That's what they call it over here. If the officer reasonably believed, and that reasonably is a problem as well, because that leaves a lot of room for who said this and who said that and what they thought. And we already know that motive is very difficult to prove in the court of law for a crime. They talk about this in all of the opinions at all different jurisdictions. Remember, we went over jurisdictions, right? We went over what? Municipal, county, state, right? Federal. We went all, so those jurisdictions, each one of those courts is a jurisdiction, okay? And these judges and legal professionals, because there are, and when I say legal professionals, I'm grouping them intentionally because there are different programs of study for the field of law. You can obtain a Juris Doctor and not ever practice as a licensed attorney. That's something I want you to know as well. You're welcome. I love you. They have a master's. There are several law schools that offer just, and I shouldn't say just, because I'm not trying to imply that it's somehow subordinate or less important or has less accreditation attached to it. So I apologize for saying just, but I'm just speaking colloquially, but I just wanted to clarify that. A master's degree in legal studies. Had you considered it? You should. Had you considered it? You should. You can have a criminal background and be in law school. I still, to this day, regardless of whether or not I have extenuating circumstances, and I can prove and show generally that there are some definitely holes in the story of that conviction. At the end of the day, that conviction is still literally on my criminal background, whether it's right or not. And I'm in school. And that's a felon. And I didn't pay an extra fee to someone in the law school to get in. I didn't pay an extra fee to anyone in the PhD program to get in. I didn't. I went through the same regular process. Now, mind you, I am releasing a book, and I want you to be aware of this because this is going to be important as well. I'm going to need your assistance because I've told you before, I released it last year, and I was hoping that maybe it was not the case because I absolutely have so much love for my alma mater, generally speaking, but I'm very concerned at the direction that it's headed. Other students have complained as well, but it's been swept under the rug because Auntie is doing so well. And it's very hard in an environment that, Auntie was having some issues with, financial backing. And we know desperation for money, it makes you do some terrible things, right? You do something strange for some change. Auntie is appearing to be doing something strange for some change. So I'm going to be putting out a book before my birthday. It's entitled She's Not a Scientist. It will be on point to everything that we're talking about today and even more. And I'm not really 100% sure what that is. I've been told by one of my mentors and a former chancellor emeritus, and let me space that because sometimes I do that, especially when I'm trying to make sure that you understand all terms. A former chancellor, which would also be known as a chancellor emeritus. And he's expressed to me that the politics changed and nothing more. And so I've just been holding on for dear life and remaining professional and standing my ground and doing the things that I need to do to complete my PhD program. And I've been a PhD candidate, as some of you know, since 2015. I should have graduated by now. I have nothing else to undergo except my final defense. My dissertation is effectually written. I can't finish it, quote unquote, until my committee reviews it and gives me their recommendations on how to change it. And my dissertation committee resigned this semester. There's more to the story. I'll give it all to you. But what I'm getting at is that you don't need to have a clean criminal background in order to pursue and obtain a degree in the field of law and use that degree to empower Black America as it relates to legal education, or become a licensed attorney. Okay. So we go back to the criteria, our if then scenario, right? Breonna Taylor, Attorney General. The Attorney General says, okay, well, this is our if then scenario. All of the elements must be met in order for me to charge him with a crime, the crime of murdering Breonna Taylor. Now you're with me. I know at this point that whoever's watching or who will be watching it, and you get to this point in the video, you're like, oh, hell, now I get it. Because they never talk about all elements must be met. They never talk about that on live CNN. They never talk about it on even, you know the hell they're not going to share it on Fox because they don't want you to know. Now CNN they have gone into more detail escalatedly. Like what I'm saying is every year they seem to be more and more down to earth and willing to just tear that veil of, this the mysterious fields of law. Cuomo does it. He does it as much as he possibly can without exposing himself to not having full opportunity to share the information to you with his public platform. He has to be careful in a way as well. And he will tell you the same thing. He's even told you during this time frame. But they're getting more and more permission to really just pull that veil back. And that's a beautiful thing. That's what I'm hopeful for with Kamala Harris, her component here. And I don't know who will be the greater influence morally in this administration between Kamala or Joe Biden, or even more specifically, their spouses. Their spouses are so, and I hope I'm not wrong because I don't know these people. I've never met them. But I'm going to tell you something. We know that birds of a feather flock together, and all of this is relevant to Breonna Taylor. Just follow me here now. And I was admittedly very concerned when I found out that Kamala, and I found this out some years ago, and so that was my concern with her running for office this go round, in this election. And I'm referring to her husband. And I'm sorry, and I mean that most genuinely, but the reality about microaggressions for Black America is that we unfortunately have been so discriminated against, so repetitively, so terribly, so stealthily, so evilly by people with Caucasian hue, right? White hue, that when we hear, oh, it's a white man behind the scenes, our thoughts do consider, oh, hell, what is this going to be about? Is this just another way to get another white man in office? Is this what we're doing? We're just going to sneak them in through the interracial marriage. You all have thought it. You may not have talked about it. I'm telling you. But you know what I do? Instead of sometimes vocalizing those things, because I don't want you to take this and run with it, because I want you to hear the rest of this. I don't vocalize it because I don't want to cause divide. Remember, and I almost forgot that. Oh, I forgot my affirmation. My affirmation is what? That I may further impact and enlighten and inspire unity and growth and expanded knowledge collectively for us all, not just Black America. Because injustice for one, what is injustice for us all? May I not further divide. Okay. So I researched who he was, and I did it objectively. That's the important part of research. And that's the component of science that I would bring to the table in any leadership position for you. Because you can do research, but you can do it in a biased fashion. You can do it unintentionally. It can be even subconsciously. You're not even realizing that that's how you are approaching your research, your investigation into a person or a matter. So I did it completely objectively. I didn't type in things like Kamala's husband and KKK. I just typed in his name and used the resources like that, that were linked there too, and then use those resources to find my own resources to verify even those resources that were linked to his name. Because sometimes there's just, you have passive links, you've heard of them. And I wanted to know, is this going to be good for us or bad for us? Well, number one, he's Jewish. And no, that's not a catch-all. We know that there are definitely some bad people that are Jewish. There are bad people in every culture. But I'm a firm believer that there are certain characteristics or certain attributes that you can use about a person to ascertain what their personality and their belief system might look like. So he's Jewish. So then that knows he knows what discrimination is all about. He knows what that is. He knows mass discrimination. He knows unrelenting, intolerable, egregious, inhumane, barbarian level discrimination. Then I saw how he responded to someone trying to attack Kamala Harris at one of her events. And his face, friends. So it's like, all right, he good with me. Okay, he good with me until he ain't good with me. You see what I'm saying? So with these if-then scenarios and these legal professionals, you see, Kamala is at a level. I was meshing K and L with level, right? K, Kamala, and level in my head, right? At Kamala's level, what I do have a profound respect, even with her history. And I'm going to tell you why I'm concerned about her history, but I'm not as concerned about it anymore because I fully understand the landscape for a woman of color, especially a Black woman. And they couldn't even process that she was biracial and not the stereotypical biracial Caucasian and African American. They couldn't even because they love them, quote unquote, some mulattoes generally, right? And we do not promote that term. But the point I'm making is that they were really confused, I'm very sure. So my concern is that maybe it's very likely that in her career, as she was aspiring for higher office, which we can imagine that at some point she knew, okay, I want to pursue higher office. In that pursuit, we know generally for women, that pursuit is met with obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, after genderism, after misogyny, left and right, sexual harassment, unequal pay. They even subject them to a form of hazing, especially the DAs. You have to have so many of these cases. Same thing with police officers. That's another thing that needs to change. Ethically, it needs to change. If we're one nation under God and there should be a separation of church and state, but we are still yet one nation under God, then why wouldn't we be able to observe that full moral, spiritual compass within the court of law. Why must the DA have so many bodies under, under their belt? Why? Why does a police officer need to have so many bodies under their belt? Why do they need to have so many tickets that they wrote in a month? Why do they need to have so many outcomes for cases that were ruled, against the suspect? Why does that have to happen? Why can't there be more positive rulings? Why can't there be more positive outcomes? Why can't there be grace? Why can't there? When our senators make mistakes and our House of Representatives and other politicians make mistakes, they just have a whole team of damage control. And whether we, the people, let it go or not, they let it go and keep right on running for office. That doesn't happen in the court of law for most citizens. They make a mistake, they're in court, the book is thrown at them, then they try to return to society. Sometimes they fail because, probation, the terms, the conditions, the requirements for probation are unreasonable. The money required, the time, the commitment, the things, anything that happens, like if they are fired or if they miss an appointment, they can have their sentence activated, be taken away from their family and children, just so many things. But it happens so much differently for the police officer or the legal professionals. And you're saying, Tigress, how does this have anything to do with Breonna? Hello, the if-then scenarios are not binding enough. They're not strict enough. They're written in favor to give the benefit of doubt, give the benefit of a doubt to the police officer, not to the citizen. Kind of like you've heard me talk about the landlord-tenant laws. Some of you have heard me speak about this at events directly, and we've got 8 minutes. So if you have any questions, please come in and please give me your questions, please. And some of you, with regards to tenant and landlord laws, you're still not heeding what I said. And I wish that I could share with you right now, but it's not good. I'm not seeking to have this over impressive show of couth, but I do want to be respectful. I don't want to be haughty and touting my knowledge of understanding, the steps in law to take care of, an eviction or take care of legal issues that you may have with your landlord. I'll do that when I can, when I can more aptly and more properly do that as a licensed attorney. That's what I aspire to be. Now, I know that I will have some issues here in this state, but I'm believing that the legislation will change by the time I am ready to pass the bar, ready to take the bar, and hopefully pass it on the first take. And yes, if you weren't aware of that, you can take the bar multiple times, and it doesn't bar you from becoming bar. It doesn't keep you from becoming a licensed attorney. So this is the comparison that I'm making as it relates to laws written in favor of the police officer. There are certain states that if your landlord has not made certain repairs to the home, you can withhold rent. I believe that New York is one of those states. And I believe that New York is one of those states because they have such a high population. And that would definitely lend toward affecting the sustainability of public health and wellness if they ended up with tenants just being evicted for reasons that, their landlord was a slumlord. I mean, come on, France, that's not right. Now however, so that would be considered a tenant favored state. And we know those terms, so you got the self-explanatory. It just means that the law is written to give the tenant more power, if you will. Because in that particular state, there are some issues that would make it worse for the tenant if the law wasn't written that way. Now, it should be the same across the nation, I insist. But the argument that they make in the field of law is that there are certain states where the population is not that huge. The risk, and they call them injury. The injuries that the tenant may potentially experience are not as big as those that the landlord would experience. And they're usually talking about money. And they'll say stuff like, well, if the tenant can be cured, if we can make things right by throwing money at the tenant and telling them that they still got to move out, then then we're going to award possession of the property to the landlord. Those states, like North Carolina, that is called a landlord favored state. So we can look at the laws that are written right now, you know what I mean? The laws that are on the books, and we talked about laws in the books in the last session. So the laws on the books right now are police favored laws. And you knew this, but you hadn't put it all together. Like, wait. So the elements. So we have the elements, right? And we're at the end, and this is perfect timing. Why hasn't he been charged for murder? And why was he charged for the bullets, the shots that he missed, quote unquote? And that's what we see colloquially. And that makes sense. We're not wrong for seeing that because it looks like some serious ass bullshit. But how they would explain it, and there's some validity in it, which is the part that sucks. Because there may be, based on how the law reads, and based on what I've seen lawyers do, licensed attorneys and judges do, and DAs do when they feel like their hands are tied, right? Because they can only work within this if-then scenario that is written into law. So we know that even though they did not properly execute the warrant in the express fact that they did not allow enough time before entering in the home, even though it was a no-knock warrant. So that could either go either way. Somebody say, yes, you met that element, or no, you didn't meet that element. I would likely say that he will say that they didn't meet that element because they could have just exercised an overabundance of due diligence considering the nature of it and considering the express fact that it was not the updated address. It was not the known current address for Walker. I don't want to get Grover. Grover is the ex. Walker was the current boyfriend. Grover also was in jail, in custody. So we talk about, well, if there was negligence. So that element was probably met. I think that the DA, I don't know why I want to call him the DA. The Attorney General said, oh, I can make these two fit. These two elements, we got a yes on. But that third element, that's what gets us every single time in these police brutality cases. Did the officer reasonably apprehend imminent fear of his life? And apprehend just means, did he think that there was an actual threat in front of him? Remember, motive is hard to prove. We can try. There are things that people do, the steps that lead up to the actions that people take. We can use those to assume what someone's motive is, what they're thinking, but because we cannot get directly into someone's head, there's always, and it just exists, there's always the possibility that they were not thinking the bad thing that we thought they were. And that would be the element that most likely the Attorney General felt was not met. So what did we just talk about? Then that constitutes no crime. Do we think a crime was committed? Absolutely. Do we assert that a crime was committed? Absolutely. Can we say that a crime was committed? Hell yeah. But it's not consistent with how the laws are written right now. How the laws are written right now, no crime constituted because not all elements were met to charge an officer. He may have been thinking, but he can't say this aloud because then his job would truly be on the line and he would be under punitive consequences. He may have, and when I say he, I'm talking about the Attorney General. He may be thinking, okay, fuck, I can't make this stick. I can't make the crime stick. I want to make it stick and I can't make it stick. So let me see if are there any other laws, any other ways that I can just get his ass, anything that I can tack on him. And we know that mentality when we have seen movies, and we know in reality when road cops trump up charges, right? And it's funny because again, Trump, and y'all still thought that Trump was okay because we associate his name with a very bad behavior. He's Trump, okay, but all right. So when they trump up charges, they just charge it with everything and hope that something sticks because they know that this is a bunch of bullshit, right? So maybe the Attorney General was thinking to himself, okay, wait, let me look. And he could have spent all night. He was like, okay, but I got to make sure because I got to do it the right way. And we know this, again, from the movies and from reality, that if they don't get everything right, what happens? A murder case can be thrown out, and the bad guys, the truly awful, bad, terrible guys that we do need to have criminal punishment for, right? And what do? They get off. So it's like, okay, let me think. Oh, yes. Because these bullets went into the neighbor's home, there is a crime on the books that says I can charge him with this crime. I got his ass. And he may have been thinking, I'm doing something good for the hood. But of course, we see it as it is because it is. It is. And he sees it as well. He may not have even expected or anticipated the backlash because he may have been thinking, I hope they see it. But if we don't share the same information about how the law works, we can look at him like a sellout. And I agree. And remember, I can see both sides. I can see both perspectives because I've been in that dual seat. I've been in the seat of duality. This is why I have come forward and lend my perspectives to us all for our upward mobility and viability into perpetuity. So we don't know, but these if-then scenarios, they're a stinker. They're a stinker. And we don't know what the Attorney General's intentions were. And we may never know unless maybe he's out of office. The reason being is because actually he can't even say it when he gets out of office. This is going to be a secret he has to take to the grave. Because he can't say in his position, I found a crime to tap that ass with because I couldn't charge him with a crime of murder that I really wanted to charge him with. Do you understand? 1 hour, 4 minutes. I love y'all. I do. Endlessly, unconditionally. I am the condition of unconditional love. And you can thank my dad and my mom and my village. And we'll have more conversations in the near future. I hope that even those of you who are watching and you're thinking that, well, I don't support Black people and I don't even like Black people and this is how I was raised. And so I'm just watching this to see if I can post on her page and be a naysayer and be a imp and be a nigger, be a white nigger, a white racist nigger, and just start up division. I hope that after you heard all of this, that you were like, well, damn, she makes a lot of damn sense. And why are we hating one another? Now you got that gun in my face. You got that noose that you taunting me or my child with, or my family members with. Yeah, we enemies, friend. And friend is not from the dictionary, from the real life hood dictionary. Friend is not a term of endearment with that tone. Not that tone of voice. We have so much work to do. So much. So much. I hope that in this session today that I have inspired and encouraged and expanded thought and understanding of the process of law and not further divide. I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, happily bringing to you on a weekly basis at 4 p.m. on Sundays, Evolve Weekly. Every victory for one lends victory for everyone. Have a wonderful week and see you next week.